Hello and welcome to All For United WFC. Hello and welcome to All For United with me, John Foster, MUFC. Thank you to everybody in the comments. I could see that you was really eagerly waiting. Thank you very much, Benny. Apologies right off the bat about my voice. I was absolutely fine last night with the Catherine Batty show, but I went to bed and woke up really ill. Let's put it that way to keep away all the graphic details. So yeah, but we're here anyway, and we're putting this Thursday show out. Rob, thank you very much for joining us. I know you've had a bit of a busy day yourself. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm the exact same. Again, bit of a cold. So unfortunately, people don't get to see my sort of hay fever covered sort of face this evening, which is probably a relief for everyone involved.
Connor, thank you for joining me as always. How are you?
Yep, all good. Am I going to be the wellest one on it? That's going to make a change. I'm usually the one.
Yeah, I think so.
That's a right turn up for the books, that is.
Look, guys, we want to talk a bit about Jackie's 3 assists. We spoke a little bit yesterday on Tooney about her fine form. I think it's only fair that we talk a little bit about Jackie Gronin with her assists over the past week or so. We want to talk a little bit about any Chelsea, Arsenal and City players that took Rob's eye and any other countries and players over the past week as well. I want to touch on the semi-final this weekend. Rob's obviously heavily invested in that one, being a Chelsea fan, so Chelsea versus Arsenal. And then just running, really, Chelsea versus Arsenal, stroke City versus United. So plenty of things to get our teeth into. If this show is just a little bit under an hour, I do apologise, just because we're not very well, really. So we're just going to do the best that we can. And I'll put your comments on screen as well. So Connor, I'll start off with yourself. Jackie, you missed the show yesterday. I had Barry on with me talking about Tooney, but we'll talk a little bit about Jackie. 3 assists, as she always does for the Netherlands. She scores, she assists. How can we get that into the final 3 games of United?
Oh, is it going to sound bad? I'm going to start off slightly negative. I think you've got to look at the opposition a little bit. And look at the Dutch squad and look at the teams they were playing. South Africa gave them a little bit of a, I say closer game. They still lost 5-1. Obviously, Cyprus was a walkover. That's where she got the 3 assists in. I mean, yeah. The thing is, she doesn't play bad for United. She just plays differently to how she plays. Now, I don't watch enough Dutch football to give you a full in-depth analysis on how they play, so I'm just going to give a brief overview on it. Yeah, they play, I think, a 3 across the middle, which obviously is... I think any style is going to be different to Skinner. I don't actually think there's anyone who plays the way that we do. So she's always going to play differently when she goes away with internationals. Now, that's not to say she's played bad when she's played for United, but she's not going to rack up the numbers she does on the national stage for United. 2 reasons. 1, the opposition's different. 2, it's a different way of playing, and she plays slightly differently for the Netherlands. So, yeah, it's good for her, good for her confidence. But I think that the thing with Jackie at the moment is now lads coming back in. As soon as one of the centre-backs come back in, lad will go back into midfield. That's probably going to push Jackie back out of the team again. So, because it's going to be Zellerman now, it's going to be lads. And then you're probably going to look at, unless you push Tooney out wide and Jackie play. I don't know, but yeah, it's going to be tough for her to hold that place. But this is a good way of showing that you can, although she can stake a claim for staying in that squad, because Skinner's going to have that old problem again of a lot of options in midfield. So yeah, it's good for her. It's good for her confidence, and hopefully she can start producing some of those numbers on a United shirt as well.
Mm. Well, on that, I mean, yeah, you're right. They do play 3 across midfield, and obviously it's a completely different formation and set up to the way United play. But she does very often play out wide, and for Holland, but I would say wide. It's wide of the 3, but it's more of a narrow 3. But Rob, just bringing you in on this. Can you see a difference from an outsider about the way she plays for a national team and for a club team?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because, again, as sort of Connor said, I think you have to look at the level of the opposition and also to a point, the level of the players that the Dutch have. Because you've got someone like, for example, Viviana Miedemeyer, who a very simple 5-yard pass can turn into an assist because she can go around two players and sort of, put it into the top corner. I'm not saying United don't have that, but I think when United have it, it's different players, maybe doing the supply. You're probably looking at, say, maybe Toon into Russo or, Zellum into Russo, etc., or into Toon. And I think with the Dutch side, they play her in a much more advanced role. I think it's fair to say a more advanced sort of midfield role, almost as a advanced 6, sometimes as a number 10. I do remember when Groningen was at Chelsea, again, a long, long time ago, she sort of often was deployed on the wing, and one of the main issues that people had with her was a lack of end product from the wing. And I think that's possibly, the issue United also encounter is there's a lot of very good technical work, but not really those killer passes. And I think from a United POV, she'd really love to play in that position that Ella Toon sort of operates in. And you aren't really going to drop Ella Toon, so you then have to work out what you do with Toon. Do you put her wide? I think if you put her wide, it disrupts the rest of the team. So I think it's kind of a bit of a horses for courses situation. And you've got to try and find the way to balance it. And this is something Chelsea have had to try and do this year on the women's side. Try and balance it so you've got the right systems in place for the right games.
Yeah. And just on that, Connor's kind of mentioned it there. Jackie might not even get a start at United, but who would have thought at the start of the season that both Vilde Risa and Jackie may not be in the starting 11? Rob, if you just want to stick with that, it just kind of shows the strength of depth that we do have, but also you've got to play the right player in the right position as well.
Yeah, I mean, I said this last year when Chelsea had the situation when they were constantly, benching Jessie Fleming. Jessie Fleming is a top footballer, and I think we're now seeing it this year. And I think with Vilde Risa, you'll see it next year. Once she's had a year to adapt to the English game, you see, a lot more from the player. The same with Ji So Yun. Ji So Yun took a little while to adapt initially, but has come in to be such a fantastic sort of metronome for the club. What I will say, my concern, I think, with someone like Jackie is that I think Jackie is at a point now where she knows she's not getting any younger, and she knows that if she becomes a free agent, she likely gets an offer from a very good European club because she's a very good player. And it kind of reminds me a little bit with Van der Donk when she was at Arsenal, where Danielle Van der Donk obviously wasn't playing as much as she'd like at Arsenal and has now got the move to Lyon. And it wasn't due to the fact that she wasn't, good enough for Arsenal. It was the fact that, she wasn't getting enough minutes. And that's my only concern, I think, from a United point of view, is persuading her to sign a contract and say, you're going to get minutes, but not necessarily in your preferred role. And that's the issue I think Chelsea had to encounter. And, I know last summer Chelsea got very close to, Jessie Fleming going out on loan. And it didn't end up happening for a couple of reasons, mainly because of players being injured and sort of, out of form. But then when the player does come in, they have to perform. And that's one with Jessie Fleming. Jessie Fleming came in and started performing. And so suddenly people like Ji So Yun and Melly Leupolz, who were so good last year, found themselves on the bench more and more. And that's what I think Groningen's issue is that when she has come in, she hasn't necessarily performed for the club the same way she plays for the country.
You mentioned contracts there. There's people in the comments mentioning the contract as well. It's definitely got a bit of talk in the summer, isn't it? Kind of the longer it goes on, the more it's going to overtake and overshadow pretty much everything into this Jackie Groningen contract.
Yeah, the thing is, United will do what they're going to do with Honor, and I'm pretty sure they've got the extension on Jackie as well, haven't they? This 1 year that everyone keeps talking about. I think someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure they've got it on Jackie as well.
So it is correct.
Yeah, so they'll do that anyway, and if she leaves, she will get a fee for it. So it's not the end of the world as long as the fee is substantial enough to get a player, of that kind of quality in. It's going to drag on. I'm a little bit thinking as to why United haven't already done that, because it just seems a sensible thing. Maybe they have and they just haven't announced it. We don't know. But yeah, it's interesting for her because she's at an age. I think pretty sure she's 27. She'll be 28 later this year. She's at a point in her career where if that's what she wants to be challenging in the Champions League and winning titles. United can get there in the next couple of years. But she's got a big decision to make in the summer, because does she want to commit with a new contract for another 3-4 years, maybe? I wouldn't be too sure. Especially if you're not starting. If you were thinking, I'm guaranteed to start kind of thing, and then all of a sudden you're not even starting some games. She doesn't even come off the bench. So, it's, I don't know. And you've got Bo Risa in there as well, obviously signed last year. So it's going to be tough for her to the best way of doing it, though, I've said this all season, make Skinner make the impossible decision that she can't be dropped. Make sure you play that well in a United shirt that Skinner can go, well, I can't leave her out. It's impossible. And then try and fit in around her. The reason why I think she has been put out is because Ladd has obviously, we know what Ladd can do. Zellam's been on top form this season. Tooney, you can't drop her. You can't drop Russo. Galton's coming into form now. Martha Thomas has done well. So you're looking at where you fit her in. So, yeah, if she goes, she goes. Ben is exactly right. It's not Jackie FC. If she does go, then she goes. And good luck to her. At least we'll get some kind of fee from it. But we need to make sure. This is what I say this all the time when it comes to transfers. If she does go, we need to make sure we get someone in of similar quality. Not just let her go and then we've got a bit of money now. Let's keep that in our back pockets because we know what United are like. So yeah, if she does leave,
what I would say from an outside perspective, looking at it, and what I think, like for me, the concern that I think United will have, and I've said this, like Chelsea, I think have had this as well, is that certainly in the past, I think nowadays we may be a little bit past it, but in the past the issue has been when a player leaves. From Chelsea at the moment, there are very few clubs you can go to that are like clear, obvious steps up. I would say maybe obviously Barcelona, I'm not going to disagree, are Lyon, probably, Wolfsburg, probably. Everyone else, I would say, is on a par with a similar level of Chelsea, and they are, maybe even Wolfsburg, you would argue with the finances, Chelsea can provide a better, opportunity to it, and obviously they had a good Champions League run last year. I think from United's point of view, because then obviously they're new to the women's game in the current capacity, there are players and sort of teams that are going to be looking at it and looking for the step up. And I was told with quite uncertain terms with Jackie Groening when she left Chelsea sort of the first time, it was because she felt like she deserved better and deserved more minutes and didn't want to sit around and wait for a club that was at the time developing and growing. And, it's whether she sort of has changed her mentality and her tack now. I will certainly say that I know there's a lot of interest in Germany in the player. And if she, becomes available, whether it's as a free agent or, from what I understand, the reason why her 1-year extension may not have happened yet, and again, I'd need to clarify this, but someone did say it to me, is that it might be appearance dependent and relevant to making a set number of appearances in a season. And I know that's what, for example, Chelsea, for a couple of them, they've been able to trigger it on Jess Carter. Someone says if Jackie can't guarantee game time with United, what chance do you have of a big European Cup? This is what's interesting, is that Jackie Groening for the Dutch national team looks like a completely different player to the one that plays at Manchester United. And that's what I think, someone like Wolfsburg, for example, will take a punt on that because Wolfsburg can effectively rotate their entire 11 domestically, apart from when they play Bayern, and they can rotate 100% between the Champions League and the league. Whereas in the WSL, you can't do that. You can't have 100% rotation.
It's definitely. Sorry, I'm unmuted. Thank you, Connor. Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see what's going to happen going forward. Because how can you let a player of that talent go? I agree with Benny in the comments, by the way. It's not player FC. But on the flip side, she can't even get into start 11 all the time. So would it be such a massive loss? And I mean that in the nicest way possible. But if she's not playing, she's not playing that much this season. If you have a look at the minutes due to injury. I do get that, and maybe if they can cash in on her in some shape or form and buy someone, you said someone to replace her or someone of that quality, it might not necessarily be a centre midfielder. Someone put in the comments about Vilda Barbisa would potentially replace her. Could we use that money elsewhere, either as a fullback or as a centre back or something like that?
United, for Arsenal fans, will hate me for saying this, but if she did go, and assuming you're considering continuing the current situation that you are in the current style you're playing, then for me the best signing would be Jordan Nobbs. And I've said this to a few people, and I've been again, there's been polar reactions to it, but she is experienced, she is a winner, she is coming in her prime, she is coming in after a year of barely playing any minutes, which I can't understand at Arsenal. I've said numerous times this season that, especially when they were in that bad patch in December and January, I'd have brought Nobbs back in and given her regular minutes, because you know what you're going to get. You're going to get goals. You're going to get a work energy. Most importantly, you're going to get an attitude. and you're going to get someone who wants to come in and wants to play minutes and play over and over and sort of doesn't want to be out the starting lineup and will commit to performances to ensure they're not out the starting lineup. Again, I just found it baffling this year from an outside perspective, considering what I know about Jordan Nobbs. And, you know, admittedly, I don't have the inside track on Arsenal as I do at Chelsea, but to have someone who's been that, you know, consistent and so important to them for so many years, and okay, I appreciate she had injuries recently, but suddenly seeing her, you know, out of the lineup completely and just out of the picture completely, it baffles me.
Yeah. Before we move on to the rest of the Arsenal players and City players and Chelsea players, just your thoughts, Rob, on the Lionesses. No major surprises regarding the scorelines. I don't think 5-0, 10-0, but what were your thoughts on those performances?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really learn a lot, let's be honest. You know, it was a sort of one of those sort of games where both, I'm sure all parties be happy there were no major injuries. Was good to see Ella Toon, I think, stepping up and showing what she can do for the Lionesses, because I think so far you could make the argument that she hasn't necessarily performed on the same level for country as for club. Same with Lauren Hemp, actually. I think that's just because they're both young players. Again, we have a horrible habit in England with young players of as soon as they come in, expecting them to be absolutely brilliant on both the men and women's side. And, you know, one or two good performances and it's the new, you know, Rooney, it's the new Gascoigne, it's the new Farrah Williams, and then, you know, one bad game and suddenly they're sort of completely awful. I would say that, it was useful to see us win some games, but to be honest, we didn't really learn a lot. Nice to see some clean sheets. At the end of the day, they were games that, like, to be honest, if they weren't in the international calendar, I don't think we'd have missed out on much.
Too much. Can you hear me again? I need to make sure that I'm unmuted, sorry. Kind of what's been your thoughts on the Lionesses? So we saw a bit of Katie Zeller, we saw a bit of Russo, we saw Mary Ebbs in one game. Obviously, Tooney on the score sheet 4 times, I think. I know that you're not a massive fan of the Lionesses, but just what your thoughts on what you did see?
Yeah, I mean, again, I sound really negative when I talk international, so I'll try and spin it into a positive, but it's the opposition again. I think you've got to really take that into account. And I agree with Rob said, you're not going to learn anything really from these games. I want England to be tested, because then you'll see the real quality and you'll see the players learn and grow from that. It's promising for the Euros that there's a good group of players coming through. They seem to have that kind of chemistry on the pitch as well, which is good. But yeah, it's good to see the United girls get some minutes. I'd rather Ella Toon have not played the second game, if I'm being totally honest, from a biased point of view, and just giving her a rest, because she doesn't seem to have a rest anywhere. The Zelen thing's a bit weird, because I don't see why that they keep taking her. There's obviously a reason, and just not playing her even in these games. We've pretty much qualified out of the group. There was no. We could have played half of the 23s and we still would have won those games and qualified. You know what I mean? So I don't understand that. Why not just start her? But yeah, they all did well. But it's promising for the Euros, if you're an England fan, that England have actually got a pretty decent team. It's just going to be those games against the real top side, Because I said on a show the other day, we've not actually been that clinical, England. We're scoring a lot, but we have like 40-odd shots to get those. So in the tight games where we're only going to have, say, 6 to 10 shots, you've got to start putting these away. We can't rely on having 40 shots in a game to score. So, yeah, if they can tighten that up, there's a good group of players there, and obviously being on home turf as well, that will help things.
I will say in the group stage, I'm really looking forward to seeing against Norway, because Norway have an outrageous attack that they're going to be putting out against us, and we've not been tested against a true world-class attack. And effectively, when I'm looking at the attack and I'm thinking Guro Reiten's the worst player in that attack, and I would count Guro Reiten as a top WSL player, then that to me is the sort of thing that actually is really going to teach me if we're going to compete for it. And I've said to people, I think Norway are one of my dark horses for the tournament, just purely on the attacking quality that they've got, and the fact that I think Ada coming back into the tournament will want to put a stamp on it, having missed a couple of them. It's one of those bizarre situations you've got where it's almost unfathomable, really. The best striker in the world suddenly announcing they're returning to international football. It just sort of beggars belief almost. And this was already not a bad, Norway side. I mean, you look at the other fact was if she didn't return, even if she, is having a poor game, oh, well, you've only got to cope with Caroline Graham-Hansen, who I still think is, the unsung hero of the Barcelona side and the thing that really makes their attack tick. And then if you think you've got Gura Wright who's coming in off the end of a good season and other good players in the squad, people like Vilda Barisa, supplying them, to me, that's a really, really scary prospect. So I'm really keen to see how England do in the group stage. To me, that'll be evidence as to how far we can actually get through in this tournament.
Rob, we spoke a little bit about Man United players and the Lionesses. What's your thoughts on some of the Arsenal, Chelsea and City players that you've seen over the past week?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those sort of, again, I'll start with the Chelsea players just for the pure bias. It was good to see Joanna Anderson score for her country. She doesn't get many goals domestically. Again, was disappointed to not see the Chelsea women's supporters group on the pitch like they promised in the song. But I understand, planes may have been a slight issue. Sam Kerr did a typical Sam Kerr performance in the first game against New Zealand, and that she missed a hatful of chances. And then when the one key moment turned up, Sam Kerr was there to sort of head it in. In the second game against New Zealand, Sam Kerr had another very typical Sam Kerr performance in that she got 2 chances to score and scored both of them. Was good to sort of see that. Was good to see Jess Carter get some more minutes for the Lionesses. Again, she's probably my vote for player of the season, probably my overall vote for WSL player of the season, just by the level of performance she's put in and how different a player is now to, last season she's gone through. If I compare it to the men's side, it's sort of a Antonio Rudiger transformation in the last sort of 12 months, in that she's gone from being, something of a bit of a sort of mixed bag that blows hot and cold to being the first name on the team sheet for a lot of people. I will say it was really good to see Maren Mielder come back for her country after 560 days out again at her age. This is likely to be her last international tournament in the summer after a horrible, horrible injury. And it's never good to see, players sort of injured. Other players that impressed me, so I thought Lauren Hemp had a good game again for the Lionesses. I know there is a certain Manchester United fan that thinks Leah Galton is a better player. I'm sorry, but they're wrong. I think Galton is a good footballer, but I do think Lauren Hemp is just on another sort of level. And to be honest, I think Lauren Hemp doesn't get, in the same way Ella Toon, I don't think gets the right sort of credit. Lauren Hemp doesn't get the right sort of credit. Like, to me, if you're talking about Kirby at the moment being the top player in her peak, I think Toon and Hemp can both get there and can both be on a similar level in their peak, if not better, if I'm sort of completely honest. I will say that I do think Beth Mead has definitely played herself into the starting role on the right-hand side. Again, I was a little surprised she didn't go to the Olympics last year. Fair play to her for sitting down and, again, clearly mentally being affected by it, but, going in and working a lot harder, getting herself selected and being the first name on the team sheet. Always good to sort of see her scoring. Other than sort of that, there wasn't too many others that impressed me. Hayley Rasso had a couple of good games for Australia. I will also, again, I know, praise of Manchester City players is probably outlawed on this show, but I will say I thought Steph Horton's statement after losing the captaincy to Leah Williamson was a very classy statement. Again, whatever you think of Steph Horton, I think it's fair to say it clearly meant a lot for her to play for the country and to represent the Lionesses, and I think she will, hope to continue doing that. Whether she does or not is another matter, but I think she's represented the country well as a leader and as as a person. At the same time, I also think Leah Williamson is a great choice for a captain. In general, I'm just really quite happy, to be honest. I think it's been a good break. I'll also finish up by saying thoughts with Rhea Percival after her ACL injury. I saw that live in the Australia-New Zealand game, and as soon as it happened, my heart sort of sank, because you knew as soon as it happened it was ligament injuries. And I know she's been so important for Tottenham this year, but also she's coming to that point in her career when coming back from that injury will not be easy. So I think, it's important to say that it's never nice to see any player injured, whoever they play for.
No, 100%. And that's one of my big issues with international football, as people will know, because it affects club football too much for me. I don't really have too much to add on what Rob said, but I think, I hate praising opposition players, but the one player I've said all season, obviously, is Lauren Hemp. And in the England games, the bits that I saw, Tooney and Hemp on that side, the left-hand side, had a really good link-up. So I wouldn't be surprised going into the summer that you see that more often. I think that team that started is probably going to be the number one, the one that played Northern Ireland, maybe one or two changes. I agree. I think Mead on the right. It's unfortunate, I think, as a United fan, that Russo is not the starting number 9. Potentially, I don't think Ellen White should be up there personally, but other people might disagree. And she has, I'm not saying she's a bad player. Her goal scoring record speaks for itself, but yeah, I'd like to say maybe see Russo up there. But yeah, it's like I said before, there's a good group of players in there, and it's good to see some of the United girls in there because in the past that wasn't the case. Oh, sorry, I've been distracted by Leicester scoring. I've lost my train of thought now.
Is it 2-1?
It is now 88th minute.
Who scored the second for my betting purposes?
I think it was Ricardo Pereira.
Yeah, no, that was not the name I was hoping for.
Yeah, so let's say it's good that some United goals are in there because I said in the past that wasn't the case. And it's good actually that they're not only getting in there, they're making a stamp, to talk about Mary Earps obviously being confirmed number one, talk about Ella Toon, make pretty much a starter now and becoming almost the face of England, that seeing that change is good as well. So yeah, it's good to see from a United point of view, but it's also, good and beneficial for the team as well.
100%, yeah. Rob, Arsenal, Chelsea this weekend. What are your thoughts on that cup semi-final? I'm sure you're probably expecting to play City, and that's not.
I mean, firstly, no, I'm going to say West Ham City again. Both sides are there on merit. They, every side that gets to a semi-final gets there on merit. So I hope West Ham do give City a good game. It is at West Ham. I know they're going to have a good crowd in there. Ollie Harder, I think, has done a good job this year at West Ham, considering the mess that he inherited when they came in, and they have got some good players in there. So, I don't think they will spring a surprise, but I think it won't be as easy as people think. Maybe, for City, sort of to do. I think they probably will come through. Chelsea Arsenal is one that I think, from a pure honest point of view, I really, really hope it's going to be the game that it should live up to. These are the two outstanding sides in the WSL this year. These are the two outstanding coaches in the WSL this year. These are the outstanding players, people like Beth Mead, Miedemeier, Blackstenius, Sam Kerr, Guro Reiten, Pernilla Harder. Again, if she returns, Fran Kirby. The excellently improved Manuela Zinsberger this year, Jess Carter. To me, it's I really hope it's a game that isn't ruined by, nonsense refereeing or some sort of nonsense decision. I want to be talking about the players. I want to be focusing on the fact that these are two sides that both can come out and, win the game due to the fact they're great footballing sides. I think it'll be tight. I think it'll be nervy. I think, it'll be a one-goal game. Could see both sides scoring quite easily. I just really hope it's a really good contest, in all honesty. I don't want to see absolute nonsense deciding it. I don't want to see it, being down to a mistake. I just want to see the best two sides, go at each other hammer and tongs. Mentally, I think it kind of will be a bit detached from the WSL race anyway, because I think whatever happens, both sides will be able to put it out their mind. They're both mentally strong enough for that, and they will know that this is a complete separate competition. But so far this season with Chelsea Arsenal, we saw Arsenal get a narrow win at the beginning of the season. Chelsea obviously outclassed them in the FA Cup final, and then a 0-0 draw at Kings Meadow. So I think they are very evenly matched sides. And I think, it'll just be a case of on the day, may the best team win.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, do you agree with that? Because I do. It's very rare that I'm disappointed in some of these big fixtures, unless if it is a refereeing decision. You do see the quality come through when these big teams play each other, in my opinion, whether it be a high-scoring game or a very tactical game. Do you agree with Rob that, we'll probably see why these two teams are at the top of the league?
I hope so, because like Rob just mentioned the previous the FA Cup final. Not gonna lie, it was the one game I didn't watch, but the two league games you're talking about, they kind of got overshadowed a little bit by some of the refereeing decisions. You could argue Arsenal, the goals that they scored in the first game at the Emirates start of the season, would they have won that game without some decisions in there, and then same for the game at Kings Meadow, as well, some decisions in there that I'm sure Rob will have an opinion on. So. Yeah,
I've got to the point now with referees where I don't think they're biased. I just think it's terrible refereeing in general. I said this, people are moaning about Rebecca Welch being appointed as the referee. I think she's the best of, honestly, a very bad bunch, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's just they need more help and more training.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, I hope it will be decided by the quality on the pitch as these games are. And, it'll be good across both of them, to be fair. I think the West Ham City game is not going to be as easy for City as some fans are, I guess, expecting. It's It will be. I'll be intrigued to know actually, Rob, how many Chelsea fans will be going, because Chelsea obviously are playing in the FA Cup for the men's semi-final at Wembley later on in the afternoon. So I know they've purposely.
I'm told we've sold out our allocation at Meadow Park. Again, whatever the allocation at Meadow Park was seemed to be up for debate, because it seemed to be something of an unofficial allocation. But from what I've seen in the supporters group, it seems to be there'll be a fair number there. And I think it's also, Chelsea have the ability, at least the advantage, that some fans can get there, and then there'll be a mad dash over to Wembley just in time sort of for kickoff. I will, have a chance to have a bit of a moan here at the FA. I think that the timings for the games have been silly, especially for, the City game. It means that City fans that want to go to that game also can't get to Wembley and have to choose. Firstly, I can't understand why, certainly for the City game, the men's game, they couldn't have moved it to a neutral venue nearer the location. But again, that would be me, displaying a dangerous amount of common sense for the FA. It's one of those things where, like, I would rather see this sort of thing and these sort of actions made for them saying, we care about the fans, and this constant promise of a fan-led review. Because every time I hear about that, like, so many MPs say, yes, it's going to happen, this is going to happen. But it feels like it's just going to get kicked into the dust.
Yeah, or just swap the two games around. Stick the Chelsea, the one of the Chelsea games on the Saturday and one of the City games on the Sunday.
Yeah, that would also be, far too much common sense for.
So, yeah, I was baffled by that, because my mate was like, I've got tickets to see Chelsea on Sunday. I'm like, the women's game. No, I'm going Wembley. I'm like, right, okay, because it really messed on my head that there was two. But anyway, so two quality games. And I also agree with Rob as well. It won't take away from the league. They'll have this game in mind, but also look ahead of the league. It's a different prospect. One-off games can be. I know these teams play each other a lot. This will be the fourth time. I know the FA Cup was carried on, but this season, if you want to call it that. So I know that they are played more often, but one-off games, anything can happen. So, yeah, we'll wait and see.
Well, just finishing up with the league, Rob. I've got Chelsea's winning in front of me. Spurs away, Spurs at home, Birmingham away, United at home, and Arsenal. You've got Everton away, Villa at home, Spurs at home, West Ham away. Do you look at the fixtures, or do you take it game by game? Do you kind of figure out, Arsenal might drop points here, we might drop points there, or what your thoughts?
I think it's one of those ones you have to look at it game by game, because of the nature of how games being unpredictable. Again, no one would have predicted Chelsea would drop points early in the season away at Reading, in the same way no one would have predicted Arsenal would then lose at Birmingham City. I think Chelsea know it's pretty clear now. If they, win all their remaining games, they will be champions. I think the interesting aspect for me is the two games against Spurs. I think if Chelsea win those two games, then Spurs have the interesting caveat that if they then beat Arsenal, they can effectively deny Arsenal the title at the Emirates. And that obviously is quite a big carrot for them. But I think, Chelsea will just sort of do what Chelsea sort of do. I don't think Emma Hayes will let them get, overly competitive or overly sort of, overly exuberant about it. It'll just sort of be one of those situations.
Yeah, it's slightly frustrating for me, because I predicted Arsenal to win the league at the start of the season. So even though I don't think they will now, but to be fair, I don't really care who wins it from here. They're the top two, obviously, because it's not United. So either of those two can win it from here on out. It's interesting you say about Spurs. They could potentially end it, because I'd prefer that, to be fair, because then your game against us in the last game of the season has less riding on it. So, because I think that's what it's all set up for, isn't it? Ultimately, whenever you talk about the running, the amount of shows we're going to do from between now and the end of the season, talking about the running, that last game of the season could decide the title and could decide the top three. That's how much pressure is on that final game.
I do remember, just with you saying that, I do remember last year, a Reading fan, I was doing their podcast and they asked me about it, and they said, I'll go at the end of the season. Well, at that point, it'll effectively be wrapped up. So, you'll take it easy against us. We scored after 90 seconds and then won 6-0. So I don't think, even if it is at a point where there's any level of sort of doubt, I think Chelsea will come at you, fire and brimstone on the final day. And I really actually, again, the part of me, the Maverick, and it wants me to go to the final day, because I think if United need to attack against Chelsea, it makes it actually an easier game for Chelsea, because I think we've got such ability on the counter-attack to be able to rip teams apart. If United come and say only need a point and they're sitting in, and they can play on the counter-attack against us, and we need to win it, I think it makes it, a more interesting sort of prospect.
Yeah, definitely. And just quickly on that, I know we don't want to turn this into a preview for that last game, but that's what you did in the Conti Cup on the break, just absolutely tore us apart. So yeah, I don't want that. But obviously, you look at the run-ins either way. Just looking at the top two, though, I don't know, because I've predicted obviously United to get something on the last day purely from a bias point of view, in hope really that we can. But if you were an outsider, I think you'd be putting money on Chelsea to win all those four. Same with Arsenal. I can't see them slipping up anywhere either. So the one thing it's done though this season is you've got a good race out of it. If this goes down to the final day for both the title and the top three, that is fantastic for the league. It's exactly what Sky would have wanted. So it's brilliant for the sport as a whole, because it's not just been kind of run away with and wrapped up a couple of games in the end. And it's not just you've not just got a title fight, you've got a Champions League fight as well. So that's good to see.
At any point, Robert, are you kind of worried about? Obviously, we're worried about our last game of the season, but are you not? I wouldn't say worried, but
No.
Man United coming to your ground, you're not worried at all.
At the point where we're at now, like. There's no reason to be worried about the Chelsea side, because I know we've been there and done that, and I know I have that trust in Emma Hayes, that profound trust in the squad, just to be able to go ahead and do it. And I think they've earned that. Over been so consistent over the last few years, you earn that level of respect and that level of confidence.
Mm-hmm. So I guess based on that, then you're going for City to finish third, Rob?
I mean, I was on this back in January, and I said City to finish third at the time. And again, at the time, you didn't like me saying it, and I've stuck to my principles all the way through on the basis that, and the reason why, and this is where I think someone like Jordan Nobbs would be a great signing in the summer, is someone that knows how to get things over the line and just be that little bit, just sort of extra edge and that extra sort of drive, and someone who's been there and done that. She's won everything in England, and it's just that little bit of extra, kick on. And I think City have those players at the moment. I don't think United do. And I think that's the next stage for United to get to, is get someone like that.
I agree we need to sign winners. And just on that, I've said from day one that the City would be our closest rivals for top three, even when they were right then towards the bottom, because you always knew that at some point they were going to start getting the players back and get that momentum. For me, I still felt we were favourites up until the West Ham game. Then obviously that last 5 minutes, it went away from us. But kind of just something that Rob just mentioned there about getting winners into the team as well. I thoroughly agree with that. I do think we need to get players in there with that mentality of, just exactly what Rob says, getting things over the line.
Well, exactly. We've got to do something that we've never done in beating Chelsea to achieve something we never have. So it's... Unless you've got players that have been there, we've got some players that have done it on the national stage. We've got some of the players that have won the championship with us, but that's slightly different than going for Champions League in the WSL. But we don't have that. A lot of our players, I know we were there last year, but we were kind of dropping away last year. We were kind of there and dropping out of it. This is kind of like a straight chase for top three, level points, potentially coming down to gold. If there's so many factors, City might drop points on the last day, that the word could get around the ground and get onto the players that, or we might just need a draw, if City a draw, there's so many factors and different ways it can go on the day, should it get there. But yeah, I agree. We need players that have been in this situation before. I think, I can't remember who made the point. It might actually have been Barry, or it was somebody on the fans forum 2 weeks ago, saying that we need to be buying Champions League level quality players to get us into the Champions League, not players. It's all very well and good having a squad, but we need to start buying players that are already there just to bridge that gap and not just get us. Because if we do get it this season, it's going to be great. Next season, it's going again. City are probably not going to have the injury crisis they had this year. So they're going to be strong again, going again next year. How can we maintain it? We need to sign players that are already there and have done this before. So yeah, it's an interesting road ahead, but I do agree we definitely need players that have done it and have got the experience in that, just to help us over the line, because I think that's what's cost us this season so far, that belief in ourselves that we can win this game. West Ham, Spurs, Everton, these games that we could have, Chelsea, Arsenal, City, they go there and they absolutely demolish them. They score an early goal, go on the front foot, they're 2-3 up at half-time, game's done. We don't seem to do that. We don't have the belief that we can go again. We can get a second and a third and so on. So that might be what cost us in the end.
100%, yeah. And I'll just finish off with this one then, Rob. Obviously, we spoke about the top of the league. I'll just finish off with Sang's point there. I feel Birmingham are done. Oh, I have to agree.
Yeah.
Just to widen the conversation a little bit there, Rob. I mean, what are your thoughts on Birmingham? Because I think they might struggle to bounce back up as well.
Yeah, like as long as sort of the current ownership continues to neglect the women's team, and that's what they're doing. Let's be completely pure and simple and honest about it. They're going to struggle. It's becoming an even more competitive league. I think the W Championship is probably the more competitive than WSL because there's so many sides that want to get up there. You're going to have next year. I think Southampton probably coming up who are going to want to establish themselves. People like Durham that are always there or thereabouts. Obviously, no Liverpool, but you're probably going to get Birmingham going down. And I don't think they're going to bounce straight back up. And I think that'll be the issue that they encounter is it's only going to get harder and harder to get up into the league.
Yeah, go on, Connor. Do you want to finish the show? Speak about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs for Birmingham because when they beat Arsenal and you thought there was that chance for them, they would level with Leicester, and Leicester went on a pretty decent run to be fair, and kind of left them behind. I'm just looking at it now. Birmingham needs 7 points just to even go level with Leicester. They're not, and I'm pretty sure they've got Chelsea and City in the last 2 of the last 4 as well. So, yeah, they're down. And as for coming back straight back up, I agree. There's so many good teams in the Championship. You look at how many teams could have gone up this year, barring Liverpool. Look at Durham. We're flying at the start of the season, and they dropped away. London City, Bristol, if they can get their act together, and Sheffield, and all these teams. There's plenty of teams that can come up. That's going to lead into a whole other conversation about the league expansion and everything else. But yeah, I can't see Birmingham bouncing back up. I've got some good mates who are Birmingham City season ticket holders for the men's side, and it's the same story. They're not the owners at the moment have pretty much run that club into the ground. There's a reason why there's protests at every single Birmingham men's game at the moment. Against their ownership, I'm pretty sure they'll be rivaling the Glazers for how bad the ownership is there. I mean, you only have to look at the stadium. Half the stadium shut off. And if they're neglecting the men's side and they're not looking at the women's side either, you have to question why they're there in the first place. But yeah, I can't. It'll be a long road for Birmingham. They might be one of these teams that were in the top division for a bit and then just drop and drop and drop. And they might become that team that drop into tier 3 and you just don't see them that often again, potentially.
I hope no Birmingham fans are watching this podcast tonight. As you can tell, guys, my voice has. I am struggling a little bit tonight, so we are going to end the show there. But once again, thank you very much, Rob, for your experience. You do offer a good insight in European football, not just the WSL. So thank you for coming on, Rob.
Yeah, pleasure as always. Thank you very much.
What's your plans for the rest of the week? Have you got any writing to do, any supporting to do? What's your plans for the next week?
Over the next week, I'm going to be at Spurs, not this week, but the week after, going to Spurs away. But other than that, lots of writing going and hopefully a lot of chocolate consumption this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And Connor, our plans for the rest of the week? You've got the Friday Night Fan Forum tomorrow, haven't you?
Yes. I don't know what to think about that. Yes, yeah. Tomorrow.
We got Benny on the Saturday Night Live on Saturday. Always a giveaway. And then with no Man United matches on Sunday, I'm sure there'll be some sort of content regarding the rest of the women's football pyramid. Sorry to all the people who have arrived late. It's a slightly shorter show than usual, but I need to kind of rest my voice. But yeah, thank you to everybody for watching, and we shall see you again soon. Thank you, guys.